The warning lights in the Zilani council chamber flashed red for the first time in 300 years. Zethka pressed his long fingers against the smooth surface of the communication panel, watching numbers scroll across the screen. Each number meant death. Each calculation brought his people closer to the end. "How long do we have?" he asked, though he already knew the answer would break his heart. Nira Sol, the youngest engineer on the Science Council, looked up from her instruments. Her large eyes, normally bright silver, had turned dark with fear. 6 months, High Counselor. Maybe 7 if we are lucky. Zethka closed his eyes. 12 billion Zilani lived on their beautiful world. Their ships could carry maybe 2 million at a time to the nearest safe planet. The math was simple and terrible. "Send the distress call," he said quietly. "Send it to everyone." The Zilani had never needed to ask for help before. For thousands of years they had lived in peace. They grew food, made art, studied the stars, and helped their neighbors when trouble came. They had no weapons because they had no enemies. They had no soldiers because they had no wars. But their sun was dying, and they did not know why. Nira Sol activated the long-range transmitter. The message went out in 17 different languages, racing across space at the speed of light. It was simple. "We are the Zilani of Kepler 442b. Our star is failing. We have 12 billion people and 6 months to live. Please help us." The message reached the Galactic Cooperative first. The peaceful alliance of 43 worlds had helped the Zilani many times before. They shared medicine when plagues came. They sent food when crops failed. They always answered when someone called for help. This time they did not answer. The message kept traveling, bouncing off relay stations and communication arrays. It reached trading posts and mining colonies. It found its way to exploration ships and research stations. Most who heard it felt sad but could do nothing. Moving 12 billion people was not something anyone could do quickly. Far from Zilani, space on the edge of the galaxy where few ships ever went, the message found something unexpected. Commander Jake Morrison was having the worst month of his career. The colony mission to Kepler 438b had failed completely. The planet looked good on paper, but when they arrived, they found the ground full of toxic metals. The air smelled like rotten eggs. The water would kill anyone who drank it. Now he was leading 5 ships full of disappointed colonists back toward Earth. The journey would take 8 months. The people were angry. The food was running low. Jake spent most of his time in his cabin, trying not to think about how badly everything had gone wrong. That was when Lieutenant Sam Cooper knocked on his door. "Commander, you need to see this," Sam said. He was holding a data pad and looked, excited for the first time in weeks. Jake took the pad and read the message. At first he did not understand. "Zilani, never heard of them." "Dr. Park looked them up," Sam explained. "They are about 40 light years from here. Peaceful people, never hurt anyone. And sir," he paused, "we could actually help them." Jake stared at the message again. 12 billion lives. 6 months. He thought about his own ships, designed to carry colonists across space. Each ship could hold 500,000 people if they packed them tight. They had the fuel, the food, and the space. "Get me Dr. Park," Jake said. Dr. Lisa Park arrived 10 minutes later. She was a small woman with brown hair and smart eyes. She studied alien species for a living and spoke 12 different languages. She was also the only person on the ship who seemed happy about their failed mission. "The Zilani are fascinating," she said before Jake could ask. "They have had no wars for over 2,000 years. They have incredible medical technology. They make the most beautiful art in the galaxy. And, Commander," she leaned forward, "they are terrified of us." "What do you mean?" "Humans have a reputation out here. The other species call us Deathworlders. They think we are violent and dangerous because we come from such a harsh planet. Most aliens are afraid to meet us." Jake laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "We are trying to help them and they think we are monsters." "Yes, sir. But they are also dying. Sometimes people accept help from monsters when they have no other choice." Jake looked at the message one more time. 6 months, 12 billion people. 5 human ships with angry colonists who wanted to go home. Sam, change course for the Zalani system, best speed. Sir? Sam looked confused. What about the colonists? They want to go back to Earth. They wanted a new home, Jake said. Maybe we can still give them one, just not the way any of us expected. Human ships turned away from Earth and towards Zalani space. The colonists were not happy when Jake explained the change of plans. Some shouted, some cried. But when Dr. Park told them about 12 billion people facing death, most of them understood. We came out here to build something new, Jake told them over the ship's communication system. Maybe this is how we do it. Maybe helping someone else is how we find our own home. The journey to Zalani space took 3 weeks. During that time, Dr. Park studied everything she could find about Zalani culture. She learned their language, she read their history, she tried to understand how to talk to people who had never known war. Meanwhile, Jake and his officers planned for what they might find. The Zalani message said their star was failing, but not why. Something had gone wrong, and they needed to figure out what. On the day they arrived at Kepler 442b, the human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. What they saw made everyone stop and stare. The Zalani sun was sick. It burned too hot and too bright. Streams of deadly radiation poured from its surface. The beautiful blue-green planet that had been home to billions was slowly being cooked from space. "Dear God," whispered Dr. Park. "What happened here?" Jake stood on the bridge of his ship, looking at the dying star. Around him, his crew worked, quietly, taking measurements and scanning for any signs of what had caused this disaster. "Commander," called the communications officer. "We are getting signals from the planet. They know we are here." On the main screen, a new message appeared. It was in the Zalani language, but Dr. Park translated quickly. "Unknown ships, please identify yourselves. We sent a distress call to our allies in the Galactic Cooperative. If you are not from the Cooperative, please leave our system immediately." Jake looked at Dr. Park. "They still do not know who we are." "No, sir. And when they find out, they are going to be very scared." "Open a channel," Jake ordered. "Dr. Park, you are our voice. Try to make them understand we are here to help." Dr. Park took a deep breath and began to speak in the Zalani language. "This is Dr. Lisa Park of the Human Exploration Fleet. We received your distress call. We have ships that can carry your people to safety. We want to help." The response came quickly, and Dr. Park's face went pale as she translated. "They are asking us to leave. They say..." She paused. "They say they would rather die with honor than accept help from Deathworlders." Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. These people were scared and facing the end of everything they had ever known. Fear made people say things they did not mean. "Tell them," he said slowly, "that 12 billion lives are worth more than their fear of us. Tell them we are not leaving until they at least talk to us." Dr. Park translated, and they waited. On the planet below, Jake knew that people were making the hardest decision of their lives. Accept help from the monsters, or face extinction alone. Finally, a new message came. "High Counselor Zethka will meet with one of your representatives. Come alone and unarmed to these coordinates." Jake started to stand, but Dr. Park put a hand on his arm. "Let me go, Commander. I study first contact situations. I know their language and culture, and..." She smiled sadly. "I am less scary than a military commander." Jake wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. "Take Lieutenant Cooper as your pilot. Stay in constant contact, and Dr." He looked her in the eyes. "Bring them home." As the small shuttle left the human ship and flew toward the dying world below, Jake stayed on the bridge, watching. Somewhere on that planet, 12 billion people were waiting to learn if the monsters from the Death World had come to save them, or destroy them. Time would tell which one they really were. Dr. Lisa Park stepped out of the shuttle onto the surface of the Zalani world. The air was thick and hot, filled with radiation from the dying star above. Her suit's sensors beeped warnings, but she ignored them. She had work to do. The Zalani City around her was beautiful even in its fear. Tall spires of white stone reached toward the angry sky. Gardens full of strange flowers lined the streets. But the streets were empty. Everyone was hiding inside, waiting to see what the human would do. High Counselor Zethka waited for her in a large building at the center of the city. He was tall and thin with pale blue skin and those large silver eyes that all Zalani had. When Lisa entered the room, he stepped back as if she might attack him. "You are smaller than I expected," he said in careful English. "The stories say humans are giants who eat metal and breathe fire." Lisa almost smiled. "I eat vegetables mostly, and I have never breathed fire, though I did try smoking once in college." She saw his confusion and added, "That was a joke. Humans make jokes when we are nervous." "Are you nervous?" Zethka asked. "Very," Lisa admitted. 12 billion lives is a lot of responsibility." They sat across from each other at a smooth table. Lisa could see that Zethka was trying to be brave, but his hand shook when he thought she was not looking. "Why did you come?" he asked. "Your people have nothing to gain from helping us." "Maybe that is exactly why we came," Lisa said. "Tell me about your star. What happened to it?" Zethka touched a control panel and images appeared in the air above the table. Lisa saw pictures of their sun from months ago, burning normally. Then she saw it as it was now, sick and angry. "It began 6 months ago," Zethka explained. "Our scientists do not understand it. The star burns hotter each day. Soon it will expand and burn our world to ashes." Lisa studied the images. She was not a star expert, but something looked wrong. "Has anyone else studied this? What about your allies in the Galactic Cooperative?" Zethka's face changed. For a moment, he looked angry instead of afraid. "We sent messages to all 43 worlds in the Cooperative. None have answered." "None?" Lisa was surprised. "But you have been allies for centuries." "Yes," Zethka said quietly. "We thought we were." Lisa felt a cold feeling in her stomach. Something was very wrong here. "Counselor, I need to ask you something, and you might not like it. Do you have any enemies? Anyone who might want to hurt your people?" "No," Zethka said immediately. "We have lived in peace for 2,000 years. We have no armies, no weapons, no conflicts with anyone." "What about before that, in your history?" Zethka was quiet for a long moment. "There is someone you should meet." An hour later, Lisa found herself in the deepest part of the city, in a place the Zeleny called the Memory Archive. It was full of old books and records that most people never read. Waiting for her was an old Zelany named Koldar. Unlike other Zelany, Koldar did not seem afraid of Lisa. He looked at her with curiosity instead of fear. "A human," he said. "I have read about your species. You are warriors, yes? Your whole history is war and conflict." "Some of it," Lisa admitted. "But we also make art and music. We explore space and help our friends. We are more than just warriors." "Yes," Koldar nodded. "I believe that. I study war, you see. Not because I want war, but because someone must. Remember, someone must understand what conflict looks like even in a peaceful world." He led her to a wall covered with star maps and old pictures. 2,000 years ago, there was an empire called the Vorth. They conquered worlds across this part of the galaxy. They were cruel and powerful. Lisa looked at the maps. The Vorth Empire had been huge, covering hundreds of star systems. "What happened to them?" "They disappeared," Koldar said. "The stories say they went to sleep waiting for the right time to return. But those are just stories. Everyone knows they are extinct." "Show me their territory," Lisa said. Koldar pointed to the maps. Lisa felt her blood turn cold. The Zelany world was right in the middle of what used to be Vorth space. "Koldar," she said slowly, "what kind of weapons did the Vorth have?" The old Zelany walked to another wall and showed her more pictures. Lisa saw images of planets burning, stars exploding, entire solar systems turned to dust. They had a weapon, called the Star Killer, Koldar said. It could make suns burn too hot, too fast. It would destroy whole worlds without the Vorth ever coming close. Lisa stared at the ancient pictures. They looked exactly like what was happening to the Zalani. "Son, right now, I need to contact my ship," she said. Back on the human fleet, Commander Jake Morrison listened to Lisa's report with growing anger. Captain Ryan Bell, his best tactical officer, was already pulling up star charts and historical records. "Sir," Ryan said, "if Dr. Park is right, this is not a natural disaster. Someone is trying to kill the Zalani." "The Vorth are supposed to be extinct," Jake said. "Maybe they are not as extinct as everyone thought," Ryan replied. "And sir, there is something else. I checked the communication logs. The Galactic Cooperative received the Zalani distress call 5 days before we did. And they ignored it? Worse. I think they blocked it. The signal should have reached dozens of worlds, but somehow it only got to us and a few trade stations on the outer rim." Jake felt anger building in his chest. The peaceful aliens had abandoned the Zalani to die. But why? Chief Elena Rodriguez, his top engineer, had been listening quietly. Now she spoke up. "Commander, I have been studying the data about their sun. If this is really an ancient weapon, there might be a way to stop it." "How?" "Star-killer weapons work by disrupting the star's natural cycle. If we can find the source of the disruption and shut it down, the star should return to normal." "Where would the source be?" Elena looked uncomfortable. "Probably somewhere in the star's corona, the hottest, most dangerous part of the sun." Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he opened a communication channel to Dr. Park on the planet. "Lisa, ask the Zalani if they have any ships that can handle extreme heat and radiation." Lisa's voice came back a few minutes later. "They have some research vessels, but nothing designed for combat or extreme conditions." "Jake, why do you ask?" "Because I think we are going to have to fly into their sun." On the planet, Dr. Park sat with Zethka and Koldar, explaining what the humans had discovered. The two Zalani listened in growing horror. "You mean our allies knew we were dying and did nothing?" Zethka asked. "It looks that way," Lisa said gently. "I am sorry." "And the Vorth? They are really back?" "We think so. And if they are, your world is probably not their only target." Koldar leaned forward. "What do the humans plan to do?" Lisa took a deep breath. "They want to fly into your sun and destroy the weapon that is killing it." Both Zalani stared at her in shock. "That is suicide," Zethka whispered. "Maybe," Lisa said, "but it is also the only way to save your people." "Why would they do this for us? We are not even allies. We were afraid of them until today." Lisa thought about Jake Morrison and his crew, about the colonists who had given up their dream of a new home to help strangers, about Sam Cooper, who would probably volunteer to pilot the ship into the sun without even being asked. "Because that is what humans do," she said finally. "When someone needs help, we help. Even if it is dangerous. Even if we might die. Even if the people we are helping are afraid of us." Zethka was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was different, stronger. "What do you need from us?" "Everything you know about Vorth technology. Everything you have learned about your son and—" Lisa paused. "We need you to trust us, even though we are just peaceful people who know nothing about war." "Especially because of that," Lisa said. "You have something worth fighting for. 12 billion lives, a beautiful world, and 2,000 years of peace. That is worth any risk." As Lisa prepared to return to the human ships, Zethka walked with her to the shuttle. "Dr. Park," he said, "I have spent my whole life believing that violence never solves anything. That peace is always better than conflict." "It usually is," Lisa agreed. "But sometimes," Zethka continued, "evil comes anyway, and when it does, someone has to stand against it." Lisa nodded. "That is why we came." As her shuttle lifted off toward the human fleet, Lisa looked down at the Zalani city. Soon, Jake Morrison and his people would risk everything to save this world. They would fly into the heart of a dying star to fight an ancient enemy. The Deathworlders had come to help, and maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. Lieutenant Sam Cooper stared at the modified ship in the hangar bay, and tried not to think about the fact that he would probably die in it. The ship had been built from parts of 3 different vessels. The hull came from a Zilani research craft. The engines came from a human transport. The heat shields came from experimental materials that had never been tested in a real sun. Chief Elena Rodriguez walked around the ship with a datapad, checking systems one last time. "The good news is that all the tests say it should work," she told Sam. "What is the bad news?" Sam asked. "The tests also said we should not be able to build it in the first place." Sam laughed. It was not a happy sound. "So we built an impossible ship to do an impossible mission. Sounds about right for humans." Dr. Alex Turner looked up from his instruments. He had been working for 3 days straight, barely sleeping, trying to solve the problem of how to keep a ship alive inside a star. "The heat will be the biggest problem," he said. "Even with the shields, you will have maybe 20 minutes before the ship starts to melt. How long do I need to shut down the weapon? If we are right about where it is, maybe 10 minutes. If we are wrong..." Alex shrugged. "You will have to search for it. That could take an hour. An hour in a ship that melts in 20 minutes. Yes?" Sam nodded as if this made perfect sense. "Well, I have had worse odds." Across the hangar, a group of Zilani watched the humans work. They had been watching for days, trying to understand how the Deathworlders thought about death. "They are insane," whispered Narration to her friend Renko. "How can they be so calm about dying?" Renko, who was younger and more curious, had been listening to the human conversations. "I do not think they want to die," he said, "but they are willing to if it saves our people." "That makes no sense. Why would strangers die for us?" "Maybe," said an old voice behind them. "That is what makes them different from us." They turned to see Koldar, the military historian. He had been studying human culture for days, reading everything he could find about their wars and their heroes. "Different how?" Narration asked. "We Zilani avoid risk," Koldar explained. "We choose the safe path, the peaceful path. We would rather do nothing than do something dangerous. But humans..." He pointed at Sam Cooper, who was climbing into the impossible ship. "Humans choose the dangerous path if it helps others." "But why?" "Because," said a new voice. "Sometimes the safe path leads to everyone dying." They turned to see Commander Jake Morrison walking toward them. The human leader looked tired but determined. "On my world," Jake continued, "we have a saying. The only thing necessary for evil to win is for good people to do nothing. Your people are good. You have lived in peace for 2,000 years. But when evil came for you, doing nothing would have meant death for 12 billion innocent people." Renko stepped forward. He was young for a Zilani, barely an adult, but his eyes were bright with interest. "Commander Morrison, can you teach us to think like humans?" Jake looked surprised. "What do you mean?" "I want to help. I want to learn how to fight for my people instead of just hiding from danger." Before Jake could answer, alarms began ringing throughout the hangar. A voice came over the communication system. "All hands to battle stations. Unknown ships approaching. Large fleet detected at the edge of the system." Jake ran to the nearest communication panel. "Bridge, this is Morrison. What do we have?" "Sir," came the voice of his communications officer. "You need to see this. The fleet is massive, at least 50 ships, and they are not Galactic Cooperative." Jake looked at the Zilani around him. Their faces had gone pale with fear. "The Vorth," he said quietly. "They are here." In the command center of the human fleet, Captain Ryan Bell was studying the incoming ships on his screens. What he saw made his blood run cold. "They are not just Vorth," he told Jake over the communication system. "Some of those ships are Galactic Cooperative designs. Commander, I think the Cooperative has been working with the Vorth all along." Jake felt anger building in his chest. The peaceful alliance had not just abandoned the Zilani. They had betrayed them completely. "How long until they reach us?" he asked. 2 hours, maybe 3 if they are being careful." Jake looked at Sam Cooper, who was still sitting in the modified ship. "Sam, How long do you need to reach the Star Killer weapon? 40 minutes to get there, 20 minutes inside the Corona, 40 minutes to get back if I am lucky. That is almost 2 hours total. Yes, sir. Jake made a decision that would change everything. Launch now. We will hold them off as long as we can. But Commander, Dr. Turner protested. We have not finished all the tests. The ship might not work. It will work, Sam said calmly. It has to. As Sam Cooper prepared to launch, Colonel Maria Santos was preparing the human ships for battle. She had been training some of the younger Zilani in basic combat techniques, though she knew they would never be real soldiers. Remember, she told them, you are not fighters. Your job is to help evacuate your people and keep our ships running. Leave the fighting to us. But Renko had other ideas. Colonel Santos, I want to fight with you. Maria looked at the young Zilani. He was tall and thin with no muscles to speak of, but his eyes were determined. You have never even held a weapon, she said. Then teach me. Please. I cannot stand by and watch while others fight for my world. Maria was about to say no when she saw something in Renko's face that reminded her of herself at his age. The desperate need to do something, anything to help. Fine, she said. But you follow my orders exactly. No heroics, no stupid risks. Understood? Yes, Colonel. As Sam Cooper's ship launched toward the dying sun, the approaching Vorth fleet began to spread out across the system. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the enemy ships get closer. They outnumber us 10-1, Ryan Bell reported. They have bigger ships, better weapons, and more experience, added Maria Santos. And they know we are here to help the Zilani, Jake said. They will try to stop the evacuation first. What are your orders, sir? Jake looked at the screens showing both the approaching enemy and Sam Cooper's ship diving toward the sun. Everything depended on the next few hours. We do what humans do best, he said. We stand between the innocent and those who would hurt them, no matter the cost. The human ships moved into defensive positions around the planet. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had something the enemy did not expect. They had nothing to lose and everything to fight for. On the planet below, the Zilani watched the skies and prepared for war. For the first time in 2,000 years, their peaceful world would see battle. But they were not alone. The Deathworlders had come to stand with them. Renko stood in the weapons bay of Jake Morrison's ship, holding a human rifle that felt strange in his hands. Around him, human soldiers prepared for the fight of their lives. Are you scared? He asked Colonel Santos. Terrified, she admitted. But that is normal. Fear keeps you alive in battle. The humans in the stories are never afraid. The humans in the stories are not real, Maria said. Real humans get scared, real humans make mistakes, real humans die. But real humans also do impossible things when people they care about are in danger. As the enemy ships got closer, Renko thought about his people hiding in their cities below. He thought about Sam Cooper flying into a star to save them. He thought about these strange humans who had come from across the galaxy to help strangers. Maybe, he thought, being afraid was not the worst thing. Maybe the worst thing was letting fear stop you from doing what was right. The first enemy ships opened fire, and the battle for the Zilani world began. Somewhere in the heart of the dying sun, Sam Cooper was fighting his own battle against heat and time and ancient evil. The Deathworlders had come to help, and they would not give up until the job was done, or they were all dead. For the Zilani, that was a terrifying thought and a comforting one at the same time. Sam Cooper's ship shook as it dove deeper into the corona of the dying star. The heat was incredible. Even with all the shields and cooling systems, sweat poured down his face. The temperature gauge showed numbers that should have been impossible for any living thing to survive. Still alive out here, he reported to the fleet through the crackling radio. 20 minutes until I reach the weapon's location. Back in space, the battle was going badly for the humans. The Vorth fleet was bigger and stronger than anyone had expected. Worse, some of the ships attacking them had Galactic Cooperative markings. Commander Jake Morrison watched enemy plasma bolts streak past his bridge windows. Ryan, tell me you have good news about those cooperative ships. Captain Ryan Bell looked up from his tactical display. His face was grim. Sir, I am reading life signs on those ships. They are not empty. There are people from the cooperative worlds fighting alongside the Vorth. They betrayed everyone, Jake said quietly. Not just the Zalani. They made a deal with the devils. A massive explosion rocked the ship. One of their escorts had taken a direct hit and was spinning out of control, atmosphere bleeding from its hull. Morrison to all ships, Jake called over the radio. Form up on me. Protect the evacuation transports at all costs. Down on the planet, the Zalani were loading their people onto the human transport ships as fast as they could. Families said goodbye to their beautiful world, carrying only what they could hold. Children cried. Parents tried to be brave. Everyone looked up at the flashing lights in the sky where the battle raged. Renko stood in the weapons bay of Jake's ship, trying not to drop the rifle Colonel Maria Santos had given him. The ship shook constantly from enemy fire. Human soldiers around him worked with calm efficiency, as if being shot at was just another day at work. How can you be so calm? He asked Maria. Practice, she said, checking her own weapon. And because being scared does not help anyone. An alarm sounded. Boarding pods incoming, announced the ship's computer. Maria grabbed Renko's arm. This is it. They are coming aboard. Remember what I taught you. Stay behind cover, aim carefully, and do not try to be a hero. The enemy boarding pod smashed. Through the hull with a sound like thunder. Smoke filled the corridors. Then came the sound of heavy boots and alien voices. The first Vorth soldiers through the breach were huge creatures in black armor. They moved like machines, efficient and deadly. Behind them came others that made Renko's blood freeze. They looked like humans, but their eyes were cold and empty. Cooperative soldiers, Maria whispered. They have been working with the Vorth for years. The battle in the corridors was fierce and quick. The humans fought with desperate courage, but they were outnumbered. Renko found himself pressed against a wall, firing his rifle at shapes in the smoke. He had never hurt anyone in his life, but now he was fighting for the survival of his entire species. One of the human-looking soldiers appeared in front of him. She was a woman with short blonde hair and captain stripes on her uniform. But her eyes were wrong. They looked at him like he was an insect. You are Zalani, she said in perfect English. Your people should have died quietly. Now you have brought the Deathworlders into this. You have made everything more complicated. Who are you? Renko asked, his rifle pointed at her chest. I'm Admiral Kate Murphy, she said. I was human once, before the Vorth found me and taught me better ways. Renko's finger tightened on the trigger. But before he could fire, Maria Santos appeared behind the Admiral. Kate Murphy from the colony. Ship New Hope? That Kate Murphy? The Admiral turned, and for just a moment something flickered in her empty eyes. Maria Santos? You were in my basic training class. 20 years ago, Maria said. Before you disappeared on that deep space mission, we thought you were dead. I was dead, Kate said. The Vorth killed the weak human I used to be. They made me stronger, better. They showed me that human aggression is a tool to be used, not a weakness to be ashamed of. They brainwashed you, Maria said. They freed me. Kate raised her weapon toward Maria. Now I serve a greater purpose. The Vorth Empire will rule the galaxy again, and humans will be their perfect soldiers. The two women stared at each other, across the smoky corridor. Former friends, now enemies. Renko could see the pain in Maria's eyes. Kate, Maria said softly, remember who you used to be. Remember why you became a soldier in the first place, to protect people, to help those who could not help themselves. For a moment, Kate's face changed. The coldness in her eyes flickered. I remember a little girl on New Hope. She was lost during a storm. I found her and brought her home to her family. That is who you really are, Maria said. Not this thing the Vorth made you into. Meanwhile, deep in the sun's corona, Sam Cooper had found what he was looking for. The Starkiller weapon was massive, a dark structure floating impossibly. in the heart of the star. It pulsed with evil energy, feeding off the sun's power and twisting it into something deadly. I found it, he reported to the fleet. But there is a problem. This is not just one weapon. It is connected to a whole network. I can see conduits leading to other stars. This thing is designed to kill dozens of suns at once. Jake's voice crackled through the radio. Can you shut it down? Maybe. But if I do it wrong, it might trigger the whole network. Every star it is connected to could go nova at the same time. Sam stared at the controls of the ancient weapon. The Vorth writing was alien and cruel, but Dr. Alex Turner had taught him enough to understand the basics. He could shut down just this one weapon and save the Zalani world, or he could try to destroy the entire network and save dozens of worlds, but risk killing himself and everyone else if he made a mistake. Back on Jake's ship, the battle in the corridors had stopped. Kate Murphy stood frozen, her weapon lowered, staring at Maria Santos with confused eyes. I remember, she whispered. I remember why I wanted to protect people. But the Vorth, they are in my head. They are telling me to kill you. Fight them, Maria said. You are stronger than their programming. Kate's hand went to her head. She was shaking now, fighting a war inside her own mind. There are more fleets coming, she said through gritted teeth. The Vorth are planning to clear out this entire sector of the galaxy. Dozens of worlds will die. Where are they? Renko asked. Kate looked at him with eyes that were becoming human again. Everywhere. Hidden bases, sleeping fleets. Weapons like this star killer planted in systems across the galaxy. They have been planning this for centuries. She activated a communication device on her wrist. All cooperative ships, this is Admiral Murphy. I'm ordering you to stand down immediately. Stop your attack on the human fleet. Admiral, came a confused voice over the radio. What are your orders? Kate looked at Maria, then at Renko, then at the human soldiers around her. My orders are to remember who we used to be before the Vorth got their claws into us. My orders are to help these people save innocent lives. In the heart of the dying sun, Sam Cooper made his choice. He began working on the controls, not just to save one world, but to destroy the entire network. If he failed, billions would die. If he succeeded, he would probably die himself. But that was what humans did. They took the dangerous path when innocent lives were at stake. Jake, he called over the radio, I am going to try to take out the whole network. If this works, you should see other stars in the sector return to normal in the next few hours. And if it does not work, then I hope you have a really good story to tell at my funeral. Sam's hands moved over the alien controls. Around him, the impossible ship groaned under the heat and pressure. The temperature was rising beyond what the shields could handle. He had maybe 5 more minutes before the ship would melt around him. But 5 minutes, he thought, might be enough to save the galaxy. The Starkiller weapon began to pulse with different energy. Instead of feeding off the sun's power, it was now fighting against it. The network was awakening, responding to Sam's interference. Across dozens of star systems, ancient weapons began to activate. The final battle between the Vorth Empire and the rest of the galaxy was about to begin. And in the middle of it all, a young Zalani named Renko stood with human soldiers, holding a rifle and finally understanding what courage really meant. Sam Cooper's ship was dying around him. The heat shields were melting. The air recycling system had failed 2 minutes ago. He was breathing from an emergency tank that would last maybe 3 more minutes. But his hands never stopped working on the Starkiller controls. Network destabilization at 60%, he reported to the fleet, his voice calm despite everything. I can see the connections breaking. Other star systems are responding. Through the crackling radio came Jake Morrison's voice. Sam, get out of there. You have done enough. Not yet, Commander. If I leave now, the network might repair itself. I need to make sure it is completely destroyed. Around the galaxy, other stars were beginning to heal. The weapons that had been slowly killing them for months were shutting down one by one. Billions of people on dozens of worlds would live because one human was willing to die in the heart of a sun. But Sam was not planning to die, not if he could help it. In the space battle above the Zilani world, everything was changing. Admiral Kate Murphy's order to stand down had confused many of the cooperative ships. Some obeyed, pulling back from the fight. Others, still under Vorth, Control continued their attack. The Vorth ships themselves were in chaos. Their network was failing. The communications they had relied on for centuries were breaking down. For the first time in their long history, they were fighting alone instead of as one unified force. Jake Morrison saw the change immediately. All ships press the attack. They are confused and divided. This is our chance. On Jake's ship, Renko stood beside Colonel Maria Santos as they watched the tide of battle turn. Around them, human soldiers who had been preparing to die were now fighting with renewed hope. Is it over? Renko asked. Not yet, Maria said. But for the first time, I think we might actually win this. Admiral Kate Murphy was leading a group of freed cooperative soldiers through the ship, hunting down the remaining Vorth borders. With each enemy they defeated, more of her memories returned. She remembered her family on Earth. She remembered why she had joined the military. She remembered what it felt like to be human. Admiral, one of her soldiers called, "We are getting signals from other cooperative ships. Their crews are breaking free of Vorth control." Kate nodded. The network that had kept them enslaved was the same one Sam Cooper was destroying. As it failed, humans across the galaxy were remembering who they really were. But in the heart of the dying sun, Sam was running out of time. His ship's hull was beginning to crack. Molten metal dripped from the ceiling. The controls under his hands were so hot they burned his fingers through his gloves. Network destabilization at 90%, he reported. Almost there. Then he saw something that made his blood freeze. A new signal on his instruments. More Vorth ships were coming. Not just a few. Hundreds of them, emerging from hidden bases across the sector. "Jake," he called urgently. "Massive Vorth fleet incoming. They must have been waiting in reserve. Looks like they are throwing everything they have at us." Through the radio came Jake's grim voice. "How many?" "Too many. Even with the cooperative ships switching sides, we cannot fight them all." Sam looked at the Starkiller controls. The network destruction was at 95%, so close. But the new Vorth fleet would reach the Zilani world in less than an hour. Even if he finished his mission, there would be no one left to save. Unless... Sam's eyes fell on a different set of controls. The weapon's power systems. The Starkiller did not just destroy stars. It also stored incredible amounts of energy. If he could redirect all that power at once... "Jake," he said quietly, "I have an idea, but you are not going to like it. Tell me." "I can overload the entire network. Instead of just shutting it down, I can make it explode. The energy wave will travel through all the connections, hitting every Vorth base and ship connected to the system. That sounds like good news. The bad news is that the explosion will start here, at this Starkiller. Anyone within a few light years is going to have a very bad day." There was silence on the radio. Then Jake's voice came back, steady and sure. "Do it. Jake, your ships will not survive the blast. Then we better get everyone to safety first. How long do we have?" Sam checked the calculations. "If I start the overload now, maybe 20 minutes before it goes critical." "That is not enough time to evacuate everyone." Sam stared at the controls. There was another way. A way that would give the fleet more time to escape, but it would mean staying behind to manually control the process. Before he could say anything, a new voice came over the radio. It was Renko. "Lieutenant Cooper, this is Renko. I have been studying the data from our archives. The Starkiller. Weapons have an emergency containment protocol. If someone stays at the controls, they can direct the explosion away from inhabited systems." "How do you know that?" Sam asked. "Because the Vorth were not completely evil. Even they did not want to accidentally destroy their own worlds." Sam almost laughed. "Trust the peaceful Zilani to find hope even in a weapon of mass destruction." "How long would someone need to stay?" he asked. "Until the very end," Renko said, quietly. "The containment requires constant manual adjustment." Sam nodded to himself. He had known it would probably end this way. Understood, Jake, get everyone out of here. I will make sure the explosion only hits Vorth targets. Sam, no. There has to be another way. There is not, and you know it. This is what we came here to do, help people, save lives. Sometimes that means making the hard choice. As the human fleet began moving away from the dying sun, taking thousands of Zilani refugees with them, Sam Cooper worked alone in the heart of a star. Around him, the Star Killer network was building toward the biggest explosion the galaxy had ever seen. But he was not really alone. Through the radio, his friends talked to him. They told him stories. They shared memories. Jake Morrison told him about Earth, about blue skies and green grass. Maria Santos told him about her family back home. Even Renko, the young Zilani, told him about the gardens on his world and how they would grow again once the sun was healed. You know, Sam said as the energy readings climbed toward critical, I came out here to help establish a colony. Turned out I got to help save a galaxy instead. Not a bad way to spend a career. The explosion began deep in the Starkiller weapon. Sam felt the ship shake as forces beyond imagination built up around him. But he kept his hands on the controls, guiding the blast away from innocent worlds and toward the hidden Vorth bases. Across the galaxy, ancient weapons exploded in chains of light. Vorth ships were caught in energy waves that traveled faster than light itself. Hidden bases that had slept for centuries were torn apart in seconds. The Vorth Empire, which had planned to reconquer the galaxy, died in the space of a few minutes. When the explosions ended, the galaxy was quiet. The network was gone. The weapons were destroyed. The Vorth were finished, and Sam Cooper was gone too. But he had saved everyone. The Zilani, the humans, billions of people on dozens of worlds who would never know his name but who were alive because he had been willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. 6 months later, the first joint human-Zilani colony was established on a beautiful world with 2 suns. The colonists were the same people who had failed to settle Kepler 438b. They had finally found their new home. The colony was named Cooper's Landing. Renko, now a leader among the young Zilani, stood with Jake Morrison at the dedication ceremony. Around them, humans and Zilani worked together, building something neither species could have created alone. Do you think he knew? Renko asked. Sam Cooper, do you think he knew what would come from his sacrifice? Jake looked up at the 2 suns in the sky, both burning clean and bright. I think he knew exactly what he was doing. He was not just saving lives. He was showing the galaxy what humans really are. What are humans, really? Jake smiled. We are the people who show up when someone calls for help, even if they are afraid of us, even if we might die, even if no one will remember our names. The Deathworlders. No, Jake said, just people who care about other people. That is all we ever were. The Zilani had called for help and monsters had answered. But in the end, they learned that sometimes monsters are just people who are willing to do what others cannot. Sometimes, the scariest thing in the galaxy is someone who will risk everything to protect strangers. Sometimes the monsters are the heroes, and sometimes that makes all the difference.